All right, welcome everybody. Today I'm very excited to be joined by Cab and Visp, the tanks of progress from the world first tier 11 run. How are you guys doing?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, doing well, especially after the race.
I'm sure, and huge congrats on that. It's so impressive. Like, this was the first time I ever got to do a race myself, and man, like the nerves are high, and like I'm sure it doesn't matter how much you practice, like there's still some nerves during the race. For you guys, do you have any like like race rituals you do? I'm sure you guys have done a few of these. Like, is there like certain food you eat or like anything you do like specifically before a race? Visp, if you want to take that one first.
Well, I've actually, for many of the speedruns that mattered in the past, I've had like sushi that day. I didn't do that for the race this time though. I did consider it, but in the end I didn't really feel it. For the race itself, I didn't do like many special rituals. It was more of a lack of rituals because the previous days, obviously, I've been grinding a lot of heroics on alts and on this character and everything. And on the day of the race, I did not a single heroic. Like, I just really, from start of the day to end of the day, kind of got into the mood. Went over VODs, sat on Discord, talked with the boys. And that was pretty much it.
Gotcha. Is there a specific type of sushi you usually go for?
I always like salmon. Pretty much the basic one.
Nice, yeah. Great choice. What about you, Cab? Anything you do in particular before race day?
No, much like Visp, usually I just don't eat at all. Just sit there, try to not think too hard about it, clear the mind, and
Gotcha.
do what you can do.
And just wanted to also kind of get to know you guys and like your past WoW experience. If you want to take this one first, Cap, just kind of curious, like when you started playing the game, how long you've been with Progress, how long you've kind of been doing races, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. So I started all the way back in Vanilla. Originally, didn't really get into any of the raiding scene. I was very young back then, so really started raiding in CBC. Started playing a tank early Wrath, and then it really kicked off in there would be a Mist when I joined Rapid Eye Movement for a short stint before joining a 3-day guild called Mist and just competing for the like world's best 3-man raid guild at that point. It was like World 20 or something on retail, and then whenever Nostalrius came along, started there. Actually joined Progress before that, but left it really quick again, and then joined them back in Sunwell, and been there ever since.
Very nice.
Yeah. Prior to Progress, I ran a little side project called Turbulence. We may have gotten a world first Ilden, and that is still something that is very fun to bring up in the guild.
Awesome. Visp, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I also started ages ago. It was over 15 years ago, I think. But back then, also, I was young. We didn't really have jobs, right? We didn't have money. So I used to play on like these regional private servers, small ones, like through TBC and RAF back then. And that was that. Then I played like on and off a lot throughout the expansions. I think Mists of Pandaria and Draenor, I didn't really play a lot. But then when Legion came around, I started playing retail a bit more serious. Back then we had a Swiss guild with my countrymen, where we were around like world ranks 300, so nothing to write home about, but still rating at a decent level. But also during this time, I started playing a lot of Mythic Plus. I managed to get a spot in the first ever MDI that Blizzard organized. And yeah, I stayed in that guild up until Battle for Azeroth. I think it was right before Classic hit that we actually disbanded back then. And that's when I started playing Classic. Back then it was like the usual dead guilds, but towards Nax I joined Maximum Effort, which was a speedrunning guild as well. And I played there through the rest of Classic and through TBC and most of Wrath. I ended up becoming an officer there, main tank, did some raid leading, and we had some decent speedruns. We were usually around in the top 10 ranks. And just before ICC, we disbanded as well, and that's when I joined Progress.
Gotcha. Okay, so you both have plenty of experience. Makes sense why you're in this world first run. So how would you guys rank this tier compared to other tiers in terms of difficulty?
We just put it up against ICC, which is probably the closest in everyone's mind. It was pretty difficult. Most of the bosses were harder than most of the bosses we encountered in ICC. Like 0%, I think it'd be only Putricide and Lich King who was harder than most of the bosses we had here. It's just a lot more mechanics, but still, at the end of the day, significantly easier than Lich King 0%, in my opinion.
I would also say, like, you really start noticing the shift in, like, the way responsibility is assigned. Like, previously, most bosses, it was just a pure tank and healer check, but now DPS actually get mechanics, so that's exciting. So I would say not a single boss in there is harder than Lich King 0, but on average, the bosses are much harder than ICC.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt whenever people ask me on my stream like how difficult this tier was. That's exactly what I was saying. Nothing as hard as 0% HLK, but the average difficulty of the raid definitely a step up. As far as like as a guild, what was the toughest part of tier 11 for you?
Magmaw.
Yeah.
We don't talk about
we had
a story there.
Yeah, no, we had just some interesting PTR action going on there. Obviously, Magmaw, but also on release had a few weird settings. But looking at some of the other kills, we were one of the only ones doing this strat we're doing, where we have most of the people stacked on the boss. But it lasted till, unfortunately, very far into PTR before we came to the final strategy we're using right now. Let's just say this one was a little bit more stable than the one we had prior. Other than that, Nefarian, of course, comes to mind. The off tag has a major role there, not fucking off those ads, and it's just something that, like, everyone else has it relatively easy, but if the tank fucks up, then the raid dies. So it's a lot of learning curve there.
Yeah.
I think also in general for preparation, we didn't have that much time to test it on beta, right? And it's played into it that I think you as well, Cap, and me as well, we both had some absences during that time. So we were really kind of limited.
Both of us almost missed one of the PTR sessions, so that was, of course, not ideal.
Oof. Yeah.
I missed the entire first session of PTR, which obviously hurt a bit, but...
Yeah, so you brought up Magmaw. I actually had a super embarrassing thing happen on Magmaw myself on PTR. I was Goblin, and like to initiate the pull, I was like rocket jumping in, and I didn't quite judge the distance correctly, and I went flying off the edge into the lava, and yeah, just wiped my raid like that. So
yeah, I think that's pretty relatable for both of us as well.
I had that once happen to me in beta as well.
Yeah, it was it's like, man, really? Like, I couldn't believe how far that thing launched me, because I like jumped before it, so I got some like extra distance, and man, it just went forever. But it made a good Twitch clip, at least.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So what would you sort of already talked about it, but what were the toughest parts of tier 11 as a tank specifically? You mentioned Nef already, but anything else?
I think, at least to some extent, Chimaeron was a somewhat tricky. Like, we tried a bunch of different versions to get it down. Obviously, killing it is easy, but doing it consistently and safe is a harder thing. We got a strategy down. We fucked it up on the race, but it turned out to work out. But other than that, I think it's mainly Nef, at least for my part. What about you, Visp? Do you have anything?
like from main tank perspective, I would throw Alakir in there. It's not that the fight is particularly hard, but you really need to like get these timings right, because the fight is pretty scripted. Like the mechanics are always coming more or less at the same time in a similar order, but you need to execute them properly. And it's really just an experience fight. You need to have your pulls in there. Everybody needs to get some pulls. And depending on where on that platform you stand, the abilities will hit you at different times or in like different overlaps. And from the main tank perspective, looking at the boss, you usually get probably the worst overlaps of anyone in the raid in that position. So that's really something where you just need to get some experience in. And as soon as you really have seen the fight a couple times and you have that down, it will become much easier. But to get that learning curve in takes a bit of time.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that myself tanking it for sure. Just like there were certain moments you just get like bursted like crazy, but you also, you know, have like tornadoes to deal with, wind bursts happening, you know, you got to keep an eye on that, make sure you get knocked back at the right time, or you dodge, you know, the tornadoes at the right time to then get wind bursted after. But yeah, 100% just get the experience, and it's not too bad once you've gotten the reps. So let's talk about tank differences. So you guys ran Blood DK Feral Druid for most of it, and double Blood DK I think at some points too, plus Feral for some of the 3 tank stuff, and then obviously the Prot Warrior for Nef. How big of a difference do you think it is between Blood DK and the other 3 tanks for like a main tank role? You want to take that first, Cap?
Sure. We considered a bunch of different tanks, and Death Knight is just overall stable. It can perform in any role on any boss, whether or not it's physical damage, magical damage, doesn't matter. The DK will always do good. So that's the go-to, and then obviously, yeah, it does good DPS. It has the self-heal to sustain itself, so it was the obvious pick for us. We didn't really consider anything else during PTR at any other point.
I would also say that coming from like Wrath of the Lich King, you really notice that the healing profile is a bit different. Like in ICC, we had the paladins that could just top a main tank off, but it's a bit different now. The self-healing that the DK does is really like a considerable amount, and the other tanks can't really compete with that so well.
True.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Blood DK is like kind of designed for like the active mitigation sort of thing that Blizzard eventually moved to for all tanks. Like if you play tanks in retail now, like tanks largely kind of heal themselves, keep themselves up, and play a significant role in like reducing the damage they take and everything. It just feels like Blood DK is like kind of like a tank from the future that like took a time machine back, and you still have like these old tanks that are just kind of designed in the same old way as before, where like they're very reliant on healers keeping them up, whereas like Blood DK, in a lot of situations, a Blood DK can just like keep themselves up, at least for a while, if not indefinitely, just kind of depending on what the damage intake looks like. But yeah, it's just like such a different like design philosophy that it feels like there would need to be some pretty significant changes probably to really bring other tanks up to that level. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think there's any like kind of simple solution that could bring other tanks up to the Blood DK level?
I mean, I think it'll come somewhat naturally. Like Blood DKs aren't the best for all fights, neither in this tier, and there will also be instances of in the future. We're gonna see obviously druids just scaling more and more depending on how they choose to gear, so they will become super competitive, both for tank and for the flexibility that they bring. But like, it's just for me, it's mainly the CVs that the Death Knight brings that is just unparalleled. Like having AMS is an insane ability for so many instances, and that'll also just continue to scale throughout the expansion. And just being able to immune magics will just be a thing that nobody else can outside of a bubble from a paladin.
So, yeah, DK really has an answer to everything, and also they seem to be scaling quite decently, so they are going to be hard to compete with.
And fixing it, I don't particularly know how to fix it. I think the main benefits are the CDs that they bring. So the cell field is of course nice, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the CDs that needs to be tweaked if they want to do anything with it to bring the other ones to the same level, so to speak.
Gotcha. So you sort of talked about it a little bit there with feral gearing, but just wanted to kind of talk general tank gearing, specifically like hone in on each class. But for Blood Decay, I saw you were doing the stam gemming Visp. I saw other people were doing a lot of like haste gear and even like Rune of the Fallen Crusader. Do you have any thoughts on like Stone Skin Gargoyle versus Rune of the Fallen Crusader and some of the haste gear people were wearing?
Yeah, I did see it. I also heard about it earlier on, but in my opinion, like especially for a race, from a tank perspective, I very much value the safety of just like having that little bit of extra stamina. I think obviously haste can also give you some certain defensives, so faster rune regeneration. But in my mind, it's just much better to play it safe from the tank perspective. Let the DPS optimize their DPS, and you as tank should optimize your safety. And in my mind, the stamina was the best option for that. Like if it was a speedrun that is well rehashed, and you have multiple tries, then obviously I think getting a bit more aggressive with the gear is fine. But for this one-time chance race, I really valued the safety.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of where I lean towards too for Prague. Just as a tank, do what you can to maximize your survival and let the DPS handle the DPS. Later on, you can worry about like squeaking out 1,000, 2,000 more DPS, whatever, as a tank. Any thoughts on that, Cap?
No, at least for DK, of course, you get the blood shield back from the experience, but I completely agree. Like stamina is just in most instances the way forward. You'll see that I kind of deviated from that. I'm wearing almost full agility gear through the entire raid, but that's again because we're doing something very specific for the race. So, but if I had been main tank on the Guardian as well, it would be full stamina as well. So, just giving the healers the leeway to take an extra hit without dying is much more important than any other thing you could be doing.
Got it. Yeah, makes perfect sense. As far as the Prot Warrior, what did you decide to go with on that for like gemming and gearing?
So I went with just over the avoidance cap, and then from there on, it's just pure stamina as well. With using the Solbarat trinket for specifically Nef to use on top of the electrocutions just to minimize the burst damage. Also because the mastery is pretty awesome getting to the avoidance cap. So
definitely. What about talents? Are there any talents for any of the tanks that you guys think a lot of people overlook, or that maybe you wouldn't normally take, but like for the race scenario, you thought these talents were more valuable than they might otherwise be?
Well, less so more valuable, but on Blood Decay, I'm still very iffy about the Bloodworms. Because
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've looked at them so much. I've went over logs, and it's hard, right? Because the Bloodworms, they can spawn somewhat randomly. It's like, what, a 10% chance on melee attacks? And they will attack the enemy, and they will burst into healing for your party. The problem is that while these worms are up, they're also soaking up atonement healing from the priests. So it was always this evaluation of like, do they actually heal more than they absorb? And is their healing more valuable than what they absorb? For the race, because like after the first iteration of beta and I went through logs, I was really not convinced that they're actually going to be better. I did some more digging, and I did think they are probably a net gain after all. But honestly, I'm still iffy on them. I think they're very overvalued by just looking at the data without going in deeper.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard people mention that. I haven't had time to like look through that myself, but Man, like throughout Rat, they were like such a meme. I was so excited that the Bloodworm finally got its day in the sun, you know? And it seems like now it's like kind of on the fence. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not.
No, it's not being a full meme channel anymore, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not a foregone conclusion on it. Remains to be seen going forward. Druid-wise, there wasn't really much to talk about. The only thing was, of course, I played a lot of Cat, so the improved feral charge is a must. So, but I think most tank spec would already suggest that. So, yeah, nothing revolutionary.
Yeah, for the prot warrior, anything like specific for Nef there?
No, not really. Like I dabble with the idea of going into piercing howl, and depending on how you choose to approach the ads, it can be a handy thing to have to be able to bring your own movement speed slow for them. But that is certainly relevant if maybe you're a more inexperienced tank who hasn't had too many tries on it. It can give you a little bit of leeway, but at the same time, it didn't turn out to be needed force, and at the end of the day, you also risk doing more harm than good. So I just went with your basic cookie cutter tank spec. Yeah.
Gotcha. As far as glyphs, anything you changed there for Nef, or that was all pretty standard too?
It was pretty standard. Yeah, improved shockwave was the main thing. Conclave, but again, it's like your damage, and most of our talents is just revolves around damage on the warrior. It's irrelevant for the job that the off tank will be doing in the last phase. So
Sure.
there wasn't anything that really made or broke anything.
All right. And do you guys have any just general advice for tanks that are stepping into heroics that haven't cleared everything yet? They're like, this is their first time going in. They didn't PTR or anything, and they're just working through all these raids. Any advice for them?
I would say just play it safe. Don't take risks. Just because the number one log is using maybe a haste set, don't be swayed by that, and just like play it as safe as you can for the first time.
Yeah, for sure, and get comfortable with your interrupt. There's a lot of abilities in heroic that can chunk you much more than any auto attack ever would. So get that bad boy on CD.
100%, 100%. Yeah, so many other fights just have interrupts, and the tank can make such a huge impact there. Watching for those, catching any that get missed, or just interrupting all of them. Something like Arcane Storm on Maloriak, tank can just 100% handle.
Speaking of that, also, we did consider a Blood Decay spec where you would take the no runic cost on the interrupt. Which, if you're struggling with that, that's definitely a way you can go. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking that.
Okay, interesting.
Speaking for heroics as well, Dark Simulacrum is a very fun abilities for any new coming DKs. Just toss it out, see what happens.
Yeah,
usually it's a lot of fun.
Did you find any use in the raid for Dark Simulacrum, Visp?
Sadly, no. Like, okay. I tried on many bosses, but I never really managed to get anything viable.
Yeah, because I remember like back in the day, I think you could get Rack from Sinestra, and you could just like kill her very, very, very quickly with it. I think it got patched fast, but just kind of game breaking things like that. So
I've seen some footage of it was from some private server where you could get the remedy on Maloriak, and I tried getting that, but it's kind of hard because the cast is somewhat random to get. Mm-hmm. But if anybody out there wants to try that, go for it.
That would be incredible. So I just have a few questions from viewers really quick. Do you guys have any thoughts on what the best healers are? Or like what situations each healer's like best in might be a better way to phrase it.
I think your go-to healers, at least for us tanks, is at the end of the day still going to be Holy Paladins. But also Disc Priest are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Of course, druids and shamans both have their place in the sun, but it's like that role is less defined than I'd say the priest and the holy paladin is.
Holy
Especially
Paladin for
yours.
sure, I would say too. The only thing is like it's not the same as in Wrath where they can really just pump a tank. It's weaker than that, but like especially from a blood decay perspective, you kind of make up for that yourself. With your own healing.
Mm-hmm. And how important are WeakAuras for external CD use versus just communication, like just calling them out on Discord?
Like in a perfect world, it'd be perfectly fine to call out on Discord, but at least in practice, it's a hard practice, seeing as there's going to be other calls being made, and generally you'd want to keep the communication clear if whenever possible. So, although maybe more important calls could be made, and most of these instances, like the comms will be clear for the tank to call, but any raid CD such as barrier or rallying cry, etc., would be, at least for us, that's pre-assigned, so that just MLT takes care of that for us. But
I do think in a Discord call there should always be room for a tank to call the cooldown, but
sure.
like depending on what it kind of comes down to your raid, right? It's like you could also request them via WeakAuras. Like on the top left of my screen, you can see the different cooldowns. These are all clickable requests. You should always have something like that ready, even just if someone has a disconnect from Discord or anything is going wrong. Like just having something like that as a backup, I would always recommend.
Yeah, just to at least underline tank CDs and externals on tanks. There's always room for on Discord.
Yep, that is great advice. Got another question from chat. What raid are you guys looking forward to the most this XPAC? And I'll take that one step further too. Is there a specific boss that you're looking forward to the most?
I'm just looking forward to Firelands, honestly. Not really any particular boss, but just the entire raid.
I'll probably sound like a broken record, but Ragnarok's Heroic is an amazing fight, and I can't wait to do it again. It was one of the best experiences progressing that back in the day, and of course it's not going to be the same now, but it's still going to be a great fight, and I can't wait to see what kind of weird tricks we come up with. But yeah, Firelands as a general for raid as well.
Yeah, that would be my number one too. I didn't actually get to do it back in the day, so this will be like the first time I've ever done it. So I'm very, very excited for it. I've only kind of, done transmog runs of it on retail, but it looks amazing. I've heard great things and very excited for it, as I think many people are. Last question we got from the viewers is, why do so few tanks in Top Guild stream? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Oh,
well, I mean, first of all, I actually do stream, but I don't really advertise my stream. It's not big. I usually stream for my 5 friends or something along those lines. And I've considered just moving away from public streaming at all and just doing unlisted streams. But like, if you're in a race like this, personally, I just really don't want to think about some stream going in the background. Like, I want to keep my mind clear. And like, I'm not a streamer, obviously, so if there would be something going on, I couldn't do moderation or anything along those lines.
I think it's, at least if you're doing any half serious raid, like the stream would be very successful. Like you're not in a position where you can afford to interact with your viewers often, because again, if you lose your focus or go AWOL, then the raid will wipe. Who cares if a DPS does 5,000 less DPS? But if the tank just misses an ability, then your raid could wipe. So.
Also, if you see in this stream, for example, like I forgot to enable my stream again on Nefarian, because every once in a while you have stuff to do that you might not want to show on stream. Like I went out to get a weapon enchant, and just to keep things clean, I disabled stream for that. But after that, I forgot to enable it again, just because that's not really what you want to be thinking about in that moment. So yeah, like I think watching a tank stream is not really optimal either way.
Gotcha. Yeah. When I streamed our raid, I just had like chat closed. And yeah, just wasn't really thinking about it at all until we were done, because I just didn't want like any distractions. Just like, I know a lot of people wanted to like watch it, so I had it up, but zero interaction from me until we finished.
Yeah, that's essentially how I do it too.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Got one more question that just came in. If you guys want to talk about it, how many hours did you spend on PTR practicing?
Oh,
I mean, as I
Don't
said, I
think you
missed
wanna
one
go-
entire iteration of PTR, so personally, way less.
Yeah, Progress as a guild spends a lot of time on PTR. I don't think anyone can deny that. Obviously, we got griefed this time around, seeing as it should have come up on Friday. They just, forgot to enable it. So we lost an entire day. And I did forget if it's no, it would be the second PTR session. But otherwise, when it's out, and just as with any other competing guild, just expect us to be there. It's a lot of hours, as it will state in our raid bio if you have it to apply. But yeah, it's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, to do what you guys did, it takes time, it takes practice, it takes a lot of strategizing, just getting the reps in, everything. Okay, so we have one more question. This is the final one from chat, and then we're gonna go into the VOD and just kind of go through that real quick. Was ICC harder prep than tier 11?
Yes. Maybe I am probably the only one who could speak on that, seeing as I'm the only one that did the race. But yes, ICC was more prep than this. We also got one more session back in ICC, of course. So we had more WeakAuras. Like some of the timings were a lot tight on some of the bosses, like especially Lich King 0. We had an enraged time we actually needed to care about. Here it's kind of just go and hit the boss, try not to die, kind of thing. Of course, you need to deal with the mechanics, but we were allowed just to focus on not dying to mechanics, and DPS would be secondary. So
yeah, I spoke with Creddy after the ICC one, and it was just so impressive, like how they had the whole enrage kiting down. I think he said like the best kite they ever did was like 20% to kill or something like that.
Yeah, we had
enraged the entire time.
We had a full session back then when we had him enraged straight after we came out of a room, and we just kited it till the next in room happened. So that'd be a full 40 seconds. So yeah, that was fun. But definitely this one was less stressful than ICC. It to some degree also shows in our performance. Like our ICC run was much cleaner than the run we had this tier, and of course we're not happy with it. Luckily it was good enough, but we made a lot of mistakes this time around, and generally that's not up to our standards, but yeah, we'll take it.
Hey, it got the job done either way.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now we'll just move into the VOD. I'm just gonna be kind of skipping through it. If there's anything in particular I go like skip over and you guys think is like worth mentioning, though, for sure, just let me know and we can go back to that.
Maybe the first thing tanking related on Conclave here. We tried multiple things on beta as well, but we ended up just going for the very safe strat of running 3 tanks on this. So we had one tank on the Anshal platform and the other one on the Nazir platform, and that was like the in-between tank. So that means our first DK on the boss here takes care of the boss and the plants, while I go over to Cap's platform a bit earlier, just to enable that swap super safe, so we don't have any frost breaths in the raid and nothing like that could happen, and so that also Cap can get to safety in time. This is really not particularly necessary, but if you have a guild that struggles with these simple mechanics, then that's obviously something you can go for.
Yeah. Obviously, Blizzard also made this boss easier because now it's less random where he just decides to pulse damage, but doing it like this just made it a lot safer than some of the other strats. But and a different thing to point out, at least on this, is the spores, especially why we use 2 DKs over there, or at least 1, is the toxic spores, so they can just wreck any tank if they cast on you. So obviously we use DK to pre-AMS the spores so they don't apply in the first place. Again, why DK CDs are so incredibly powerful.
And also, if you do play Blood DK on this, I recommend you take the AMS Glyph to give you a couple more seconds of that.
That's a really good call. Yeah, my guild, we were just like 2-tanking this, and I would be the one to like come over to Nazir like second. So by the end of it, I would have like 9 stacks of the permafrost, and like almost always it was fine, but then you got the occasional one where like he might drop like ice patch on me, and then I got like really low resist rolls and would die to that. But I like this as just a really safe strat, especially for like race situation.
But also on most kills, just running 3 tanks. You could even have 1 tank just dedicated to do the flowers, and then 2 tanks for the other 2 bosses. Like the flowers is the only thing that should be able to kill a tank here, so just having a DK solely dedicated to that is perfectly fine. Like this boss is not DPS intensive. Like we don't need to min-max your DPS. You can just take 1 more rotation if you need it to beat the timer. So having 1 more tank is really not an issue, or should not be an issue.
Especially on a fight like this, where chances are you might even have to do a damage sub at some point.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense. Anything else on this fight? Otherwise, we can just skip ahead to Alakir.
No, I think that's good. It's a pretty easy fight other than the flowers.
I'm not really sure what other raids are running these days, but we had the raid split up into, I think, 8 different quadrants.
Yeah, I did notice that our guild was doing 5, and like our lightning cones were so much bigger.
Did you move?
I really like what you guys are doing here.
Because as you see here, like the damage from the lightning is incredibly negligible. Like you're going to be taking 10k DPS on your entire group if you are stacked 3-4 people as we are here. So we just decided to, I think we play an extra healer here, so we just decide to just stand still, don't risk chaining it to other people, so we just take it with those 3-4 people and just out heal it. It played out really well for us, so I would greatly suggest just doing this. It's very stable, and at least for guilds progressing this fight, you should also just consider losting in phase 1. Again, the enrage is not an issue, but phase 1 is where a lot of guilds are gonna be spending a lot of time dying. So getting out of that early is a huge benefit.
Yeah, that's what we had kind of noticed too. Like we pretty much killed the boss as soon as we were able to, get out of phase 1 with most or everybody alive.
Yeah, that's really the hard part. It also should be said that this boss can easily be solo tanked.
Yes. So starting next week, God knows when, in the upcoming future, that should be something that should be perfectly safe on everyone. There's barely any damage going on in raid in this phase, and if you solo tank, you're going to have probably double beacons, and so that should be enough to keep a geared Death Knight up without any issues. So I think we'll see a lot of those, or Feral for that matter, any other tank.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. My guild didn't feel like going that route, but You would just basically have the Bloody K and the Feral Druid position here, like tanking away from the raid, I assume. The
Exactly.
Stormlings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Nah, I just at least there's some other guilds who move their DPS off to the side to make sure we don't get parries. It's just an intentional call to just play it safe, especially for the race. Just all stack up, allow the healers to breathe and get through it safely.
Mm-hmm. As far as the Stormlings, I noticed you guys like save a bunch of them. I think my guild was only saving like 2, and then they were starting to kill them. I really like what you're doing here, though. Like, I think you guys had the 4th one spawn like as you like actually kill the first one. This seems to just be really safe, give you a lot of leeway on like making sure the feedback stacks stay up.
Yeah, for better or worse, like the slower DPS you have, generally you want to wait with killing Stormlings. We could have killed the first one right away when the 3rd one spawned, and we would have been fine. But this respawn on the Stormling is going to be tighter than the debuff on the boss, so eventually you will run out of them. So you're gonna want to ideally I'd suggest just waiting for 3, and it should be safe for most people.
All right. And at the end of the phase here, I'm guessing you guys meant to like time like a Stormling kill like as you pushed them, and maybe it didn't quite work out, so the feedback fell off going into phase 3.
I mean, we tried a bunch of times with the PTR. We didn't really ever get a good timing.
Okay.
This is just a result of us having better gear, so we pushed it much earlier than we were used to be doing on the PTR. So that's just a result of that. But
okay.
Ideally, yeah, we'd restack it again, but it shouldn't really make that big of a difference. It's nice. So.
Yeah. Anything else for Alec here? Otherwise, we can move on.
No, let's just skip the next part here.
Yeah, let's not look at this.
This is by far weirdest phase 3 we've ever had, so I don't need to rewatch that. That'd be a blessing.
Yeah, no worries. I did love you guys had the summons coming in on everybody, like while you're still fighting Alec here. That was awesome.
They were kind of delayed though because we had a disconnect at this point, and it actually took way longer than it should have to get everybody in.
Oh, gotcha. And as far as Halfus here, how do you guys like to break up the tanks here? I believe you have the Feral. Yeah, you got the Feral on Halfus, and then Bloody K does 2 Drakes.
We had 3 tanks here as well again. Again, just a safety method. We had Cap being on Halfus as boss tank, then I was on Netherent Time, and we had our 3rd DK, who was on the Whelps and the Storm Dragon.
And the Hand of Protection here to remove the Malevolent Strike stacks. I don't know how many people know about that, but I saw you guys use that here, and like that's something we found to be just incredibly helpful, especially with the Forbearance, like 1 minute duration now. So like every minute you can like clear Malevolent Strike stacks on a tank.
Yeah, for sure. At least druids are excellent for this, thanks to our natural high dodge. So there was a specific order of or sequence of abilities and CDs to try to min-max our stacks here. Because on most of our PTR kills, the druid could almost solo tank the entire boss. Here we got a little bit unlucky and we had to make a tank swap, but using Bob makes this fight a lot safer at the start, not having to swap tanks. So, can greatly suggest that.
Absolutely.
Just make sure you either taunt or have a tank second on threat before you take the Bob.
Yes, that's what I was just going to mention. Make sure you pre-taunt when you call for that bop, and also just have a cancel or a bop macro, whether that's on your rotational abilities or separate button, whatever. Just so you can immediately get out of that. Anything else here? I did like your guys' movement here. My guild wasn't moving quite as much, and our raid was taking a lot more damage. This is definitely something we're gonna adopt, I think. Just like the bigger moves away from the fireballs.
Yeah, generally it's just a matter of hand holding here and just playing it safe. We could move less, 100%, but this just allows the melees to turn the brain off and just let the tanks do the work, and you just follow the boss. Sure, we get a little bit less D&D damage and explosive trap, but at the end of the day, that's not gonna. It's gonna be way more. Just make sure everyone stays alive. So that was the idea, and then also moving it back and forth here at the edge would allow the casters to not have to move it all throughout the fight. So that was the idea here.
Gotcha. All right. Gonna move on to Twin Dragons, unless you guys got anything else there.
Sounds good.
Oh, I did want to show this though too, because I loved this Mind Soothe tech here. My guild before, we were just we'd fight like the first pack, and then we would all like run into the room, Twin Dragons room, and like interrupt and stuff and get everything to like clump up around the corner. But I love this. There was one scary moment here where that brute like started coming over, but yeah, this was awesome. I love this.
And it's like really a low maintenance skip. Pretty easy too.
Yeah, looking back, we saw Beef Bar. They used oh, that's a nice movement from Visp there. I just want to call that out. But they of course used cloaking devices, which would also work perfectly fine. In hindsight, that might have been well, it's just a different method of the same results there.
Also, these elementals we just saw that explode, they can be kind of scary when you're doing this raid. And like here, we had a bit of a scare of being knocked into a boss, or even on the stairs, you could get knocked down. If you have like a goblin tank, it's kind of nice to use that for these movements. In case you get any scary knocks, the goblin rocket jump can pretty much save you.
Yeah, good call. While we're talking about that too, I assume you would recommend Goblin, since you are Goblin, for Blood DK tanks?
Yeah, I mean, the actual racial bonuses are kind of like minor, but just having that little bit of extra mobility on the goblin is really nice to have.
I second that, but also just any tank who can be a goblin, just mobility is king.
Got it. So here, I think this is pretty standard. Most people are doing this, but drag the boss to the middle so you can cleave up to the one in the air. You guys did a tank swap too, so you're so Visp, I think doesn't get sent down here, but later goes in with the ground effect.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you guys just felt it was better to have everybody go down at the exact same time. I've been going down on the shift myself, just like a little bit early, but
I mean, it's a judgment call at the end of the day. Our DPS allowed us to safely only have to go down twice. So it was just a matter of how late or how far can we push it before we actually needed to go down. And we chose the big swirlies as the time to send people down. If you go down earlier, there's going to be less sets, and at the end of the day, you're going to probably need to go down again earlier. So
one thing to recommend, we don't go down on the very first swirlies, but on the second ones. That is to avoid getting nuked by the next swirlies that come up, because they do cover a lot of the room.
Okay, yeah, I was just noticing that. Yeah,
it also really prevents anyone going down from getting the last blackout, which can happen depending on whether the boss decides to do that or not. That's just a little bit RNG on Blizzard's side.
This positioning I noticed, is this specifically so people can cleave off the ad onto the dragon in the Twilight phase, or was that just totally coincidental positioning there?
That's just a result of where we end up being.
Okay.
It technically it could be min-maxed, but at the end of the day, down there, DPS should be spreading out, so there's very little to gain. So
Sure.
Generally, the first priority of the boss position is more to have them stacked below each other.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where we ended up in phase 1. So that's where we stay in phase 2, if the fight allows, of course.
Got it. Anything else on this one? Otherwise, I think it's, basically just kind of the same thing over and over.
Maybe, I'm not sure if you saw, but the second time we go down, we do it actually with the 5 stacks on me.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, yes.
We did have a little mishap here, I think. Something that can happen. I ended up on 4 stacks, and the 5th stack will be applied when the boss is landing again. And that's why I have a mark, so the people that should go down can stack on me, and the ones that don't can stay away. I think we did send a couple extras in accidentally, but it in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter that much. You can go out again.
Yeah, we definitely had that happen before too, where it was that awkward timing. All right. We can just move on. Oh, I just had a question on this one, on the trash coming here. Was there a reason you guys like pulled this side mob?
I think we're a bit paranoid.
Okay.
We were.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just making sure nothing weird happens, since he does eventually pat, but
Yeah, like there's a lot of these small things that we could definitely have optimized with trash, especially, but we really played this like for full safety, essentially.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean it worked out, right?
It did.
And yeah, I love the clean pulls here. Every time I pull this room, I grab like, 2 to 4 elementals at a time, and then the DPS pull the other ones, and then we have 8 elementals, and my health bar is going from 1% to 100% back and forth, just yo-yoing constantly, and it is scary as hell, but sometimes I live through it. But it was nice to see just clean pulls here, because I don't get to see that a whole lot.
Yeah, this trash is very scary. One thing we had agreed on is that the Holy Paladins will just immediately bop whenever I'm getting stunned.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, that's
I had like, on this entire pull, I'm spamming a cancel for a pop. So in case I get it, I can immediately get out of it. Because that's really the scary part.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I love that. I'm going to ask for that too. Let's see. So first Ascendant Council. I think that was your only wipe, right?
Wipe, yeah.
The only one of the run. Yeah.
Chain lightning.
Yeah, chain lightning and melee, I think it was.
Exactly.
Whoops.
Yeah.
All right, so here you've got Visp on the Frost guy. Was there any reason you didn't have Visp on Ignatius, since Ignatius has like the frontal, fire damage that AMS is good for?
It was quite simply just because the DK can interrupt as well, so it was more important to us to have an additional stable interrupt in the Hydra lands than the frontal.
Yeah, that said, either combo can work easily.
Yeah. If you have a good shaman you can trust, then that'll of course work, but they will do it immediately after the glaciate, so you either need somebody who's going to be in there right away, or of course ranged.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't play an elemental, so we didn't have the option to do that. So it was either to use enhancement, which could have worked 100%, or I think we also did use him for quite a bit.
Yeah, he did interrupt quite a lot on this.
But it's one of those things, like we concluded it wasn't really consequential doing early PTR, and we just went with what felt good.
Got it.
So this is what we started off with, and we could have swapped it in time, but it worked out.
Okay.
Didn't matter.
I did just want to highlight, I really like the way you move on the fire here. When he does the charge, you're like already like preemptively sidestepping so that he'll just immediately move to a good position for everybody.
Yeah. I'm trying to handhold for the melee, so no melee will ever get hit by this It's when he jumps, he's gonna charge to where you're standing by the time he lands. So if you're off to the side, then that's obviously good for the melee, because now they can just keep bumping.
And also for these small optimizations, if you tank Valudius, you generally want to keep him behind Ignatius, so nobody risks getting into the fire.
For sure.
Good point. So solid push there, and then this is something we weren't doing that we're definitely gonna start doing. I like how you guys like kind of reset to middle constantly here, just so you're like always like tornado or ground thing is never like too far away. This like reset to mid here, I think, is just so important.
Yeah, it just allows whoever needs to run out of a chain lightning. It's kind of ironic that's what happened, but it allows them more room, more leeway to do that thing without risk of wiping the raid. So we seem like a natural thing for us. The only thing that can be a little bit tricky keeping it in there is there's going to be a lot of effects happening, and like the red on the floor can sometimes mask also the flame strikes, so that got a little bit weird sometimes. But we were paying a lot of attention to the flame strikes, because at this point that was almost the only thing that could kill anyone in this phase, and it was pretty rough on melee to see them, so we just made sure to auditory call them out.
I do also think this is a good example of a fight where, for once, the tanks kind of have a more relaxing job while the DPS are sweating. They get all the mechanics, the tanks don't really get these mechanics, so I really do think this is a fight where the tanks should be helping out the melee and should be paying attention to these ground effects and just play the game for the melee so they can concentrate on their raid wipe mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, one of those at least. This was a good fight where being a feral tank using having raw for could really save somebody who might have been a little bit late or is in an odd spot.
And this pretty close kiting pattern. This is similar to what we did. My guild just had me like a little bit further out, like more toward the spike part of the circle.
We had that at first, and then we transitioned away from it to getting it closer, because really there's not really a big risk to having it closer, because the melee, they stand on the opposite edge. And the caster just allows a bit more room inside.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The general idea is just don't chain the melee into the casters and vice versa. And this worked out.
Yeah, they're...
But this position will be more dangerous depending on your DPS. Here you can see we're almost closing the circle, so if we need to go to the outside, we're going to be putting ranged in an awkward spot.
Right.
We tried a bunch of different kiting patterns, but with our DPS we knew this turned out to be the most stable one for us, so this is the one we went with. But there's a bunch of different versions that works, so don't get locked into this one necessarily.
Good advice. Here, you guys pull these two mobs into the other ones. That's something we're definitely going to start doing. We were just kind of killing these separate, but I don't think there's really any reason to. Don't seem to do a whole lot.
I would say that the big trash pack actually does hurt quite a lot. We separated it, so on one trash pack I kind of took the brunt, and on the other Cap took the brunt. I think splitting your tanks there makes sense.
Yeah, you're talking about the next pulls, the two side ones. Yeah. I did see that. You basically send all defensives, which is kind of what I do on this one anyway. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. Just one tank sends all defensives on one, the other sends them on the other. Yep, Cab's going in here. And then Cho'gall. So my guild was trying to like play around with like tanking him in an alcove, and just like when he would spawn an elemental, it would just immediately spawn right on top of him. It was kind of a mess because like in the alcove, like after flame orders, like the ground would be covered in fire, and then I was just, kind of having to run around like a chicken with its head cut off, like trying to dodge fire while like doing other stuff. And I really like what you guys do here, where you just have them central and then you just move them like 5 yards onto the elemental.
Yeah, we can. I think we're thanking Blizzard for fixing this boss.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much he did on PTR, but
Yeah, yeah,
on
we
PTR we
did.
kept having both ads up on one side or at the same time, and sometimes double of the same mob, and it was not great on the PTR, but we're happy to see the work as intended here and made the fight a lot more stable. So.
Yeah,
But yeah, especially we recognize what you meant said about the fire. That's we tried as well, and I think we see it sometimes as well pushing into phase 2. But
If you look at
yeah,
the patches on the screen right now, if you're standing in the cubby, then all these patches will be pretty stacked around there, and you will have to move. So really stacking it early doesn't help you more than it hurts you.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of realized after we've done that strat a few times. We're absolutely gonna just move to what you guys are doing here. It's so much cleaner. And yeah, on the PTR, oh my god, it was just such a mess. Like double elemental spawns all the time, but he'd only absorb one, and you didn't know like which one he was gonna absorb. So I'm like, is the huge tank damage about to come, or is the raid damage about to come? And this was like probably the main thing I noticed that got fixed from PTR. It seemed like a lot of the other like random little bugs were still in, but this one was very good to see. Was changed.
Not sure how you tank the boss, but you'll see that Visp tanks the boss for like 90% of this fight. On the first Fury there, I told it like half a second before the Fury, and then she just takes it, and I'm back into cat form.
Yeah,
it flows very nicely. That after those ad died, you can go and take the Fury, and you're good to go.
Yeah, we had a Prot Pally as the other tank here. He was just like we were basically swapping. Like we would do like a Fury of Cho'gall, and then the ads would get handled by whichever tank wasn't currently tanking, and then they would like taunt off before the next Fury. But I really like this method. Keeps it very simple, and Visp 2 here is pre-AMSing the Fury to prevent the 20% magic damage debuff too. So that makes it even safer. Only having that 20% damage increase, physical damage increase on you, and then getting the tank swap so that doesn't stack.
There, Fury, boom, go next.
Yeah.
One thing you can't really see on this, but in the back, of course, we're killing the ads. We're trying to overlap them so we have some melee hitting them, but when they're like 10%, I try to use any kind of movement speed ability to just allow me to go around and make sure that the corpses are basically stacked on top of each other. It just makes it a lot nicer for the range to kill him, at least. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, you're like kiting it as they're dying, around the back of the puddle, so they like travel through it and die inside it.
Yeah. Shout out to Thalash here. We also had Honda just using distract shot. That is also a very valid way to ensure it works. So you can just stay on one side. They distract shot it, and you just taunt it back when it's time, and they die in a very nice spot. Allows the Hondas to get full usage of their entrapment as they should be playing on this fight. So the ads just become irrelevant.
Okay, good tip. All right, I'm just gonna skip ahead slightly to the last phase. All right, so here, bringing them into the alcove to get the tentacles all stacked up. That is a pretty beautiful stack. Only one of them outside of it, it looks like. And fire dropping in there too, so moving away. Was there any trick to getting the spike tentacles to spawn in range, or was that totally RNG? Because like I think on every single pull we had, they always spawned in melee, so we were just always moving. But it might have just been RNG because we had a lot of melee.
Yeah, that's RNG. We had a lot of pulls with it in melee as well, but we kind of do the movement either way. Like here, we already second the next corner, so even if we got a big tentacle in the back, this will be fine for a position.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things, just find a way that'll work in all scenarios. So if it happens, you don't need to think, you just do.
Sure. Yeah, that was super clean. There it is. All right. Sinestra. So you had Visp over here on the side. Just I assume for backstabs and whatever the Frowdred thing is, shred. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I believe Sinestra can't parry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just for those back attacks, we have this positioning.
Yes.
One thing to be careful with a goblin model, you don't want to dip into that little dip in on the left, otherwise you might be out of the line of sight.
I did experience stuff like that on PTR. I've been playing Troll on live, but on PTR I was playing the Goblin, and like just the steps on like Conclave, just like going slightly down those, like I became unhealable. And yeah, that's a good call there. I wouldn't have even thought of like that little dip being out of line of sight too.
Yeah, Sinestra for the most part are one of those fights where sure the tanks have some things to do, but for the most part it's a DPS kind of thing. We need to deal with the whelps, and that's kind of it for us.
And then
this was pretty chill.
Blood DKs get to have a lot of fun at the end with the haste buff and like having crazy rune regen time, just spamming death strikes and everything.
Yes, a little bit went a little bit haywire on our kill here towards the end, thanks to one of the orbs killing the guy it was linked to, and then it just went a little bit sideways. But
okay.
So we were forced to kill the whelps a second time in the last phase. But if you have good DPS, like that's not needed. So, but other than that, here we used Visp to interrupt the ad here, just to allow us to have enough, again, stable CDs. So we always have the backup, and we have an order. Then no matter what happens, we're good.
Yeah, like I mean, you guys just blazed through that. You just send all the DPS pretty much. It looks like to the eggs, and
yeah, we had a rogue almost entirely handling the spite quarters with gouge, blind, yeah, and then Visp's grip.
It was like one rogue and then my grip, and grips us back up in case.
Indeed. So that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it seems like a really good system. So coming up, there's going to be a tank swap at some point.
Yeah, so we're going to get the second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now we're going to get the second well pack, which you're going to see in a second. We'll kill off those whelps, and then we're going to do the swap. You could keep the same tank, but it was just one of those things. There's not really a reason to keep the same tank on Sinestra and on the whelps, because the whelp tank is just going to take more and more damage as the stacks get higher. So it was just a natural thing to do to swap after we finish off the whelps.
Yeah, for our guild, we ran with the prop eye, so they actually just bubbled off the stacks. But when we did do this without the prop eye, we were doing the same swap. I think that whelp tank would kind of just die probably if you didn't, with how many stacks they have by that point. Usually it's, I think, like 60 plus.
You can see just right side of the ray frames, you see cap stacks. 630.
Oh, yeah.
I think, did we actually end up killing these whelps, Visp?
Yeah, we did. It was kind of a judgment call because things started going wrong, but the idea was to not kill these whelps at all.
Okay, yeah, the plan was just keep them
Yeah, but
away,
it kinda-
and that's it.
In the end, it depends on how much damage you have.
Yeah.
On the boss.
We just made the call to kill them to ensure that we didn't lose a tank, and
Which we did
risk
in the
the
end
kill.
anyway.
yeah. That's why we have AoEs on. Some of us. But yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about this fight. It's main. Once we have the whelps and we have the boss, we can't get targeted by the orbs, so it's pretty chill. The only scary part really for tank is just they need the tank picking up the whelps needs to be paying attention on the very first orb, as that is happening while the whelps are coming. So you might get that, and if you do as we did here, where we move the whelps away from the raid, then you may just end up cuttering the entire raid group. So gotta stay awake for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, main thing here that I found out was you really gotta pay attention to the cutter timer when you're like bringing these whelps in, because I had a timing where I was just like, oh, I just gotta get from point A to point B, bring the whelps in so they can cleave them, and I wasn't watching the cutter timing at all, and then there was like a melee range cutter, and I just instantly died because I had 60 stacks of the Shao damage debuff. Yeah, but this is one of those fights where, like, even if the ad tank dies at the end, like, it's pretty manageable for the raid to, just kind of handle it and burn the boss down.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
This obviously slowed us down because we were meant to have summons here, but some of the people who died, of course, couldn't. Now they need a resummon, and yeah, we were a little bit slow on it, but
I'm not sure if I skipped the boss. No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, between the raids, I black
perfect
screened it. And
yeah, so at least for the speed or for the race, we chose to go ODS first because Magmaw leaves the Mangle debuff on you, so you just are in a position where you're going to be taking a lot more, or potentially taking a lot more damage. So it is kind of one or the other. So we just chose this in case that one out of 100 thing could kill us. So.
Sure. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. It's a great point. For Toxitron, you brought him to the wall here just for good ad stacking, I'm guessing, plus
Yes.
poison kind of off to the side. And then
we got
tanking
a
the
really
boss
nice
and the poison.
You got Toxitron into Canatron, so you'll see our kill being like a minute and a half faster than the second highest, which was
that's pretty
worked
insane.
out pretty well.
The double damage amps. You love to see it.
Yeah. For tanks, again, the main thing we had is just we needed the DK on a Canatron to assist with the interrupts. So had it not turned out as it had here, we would have needed to do a tank swap just to ensure we always had the DK on a Canatron, you see.
We also did have the issue here that we let the stacks go pretty high, so the casts were super fast at one point.
Do you guys normally like intentionally build those stacks a little bit for your mage spell steal?
I mean, I think it's mostly up to the mage.
It was one of those where we just instant dispel it. If the mage can get a stack, great. Otherwise, just get rid of it.
Got it.
Like.
Anything else you guys want to talk about on this one?
No, I think this.
I think that's pretty much it there. All right, and Magmaw. I believe you guys had the bug on this too. Correct me if I'm wrong, where he like flops the wrong way. Yeah.
It's such a shame because that bug has been a thing on beta as well, and apparently didn't get fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I've never seen, but I've definitely heard of like a lot of people having that issue and saw it here. It's crazy. Like, I mean, they're the world first race, like having this happen at like the craziest time. Like, you guys had such a good push timing, like going into it too, and it's just like, no, I'm over here now. You can't hit me.
Yeah, we specifically had to just AFK, hands off the keyboard for those last 40 seconds to wait for another impale phase before we could actually push it over. So that was quite unfortunate.
And you have Cab, you're starting off main tanking Magma here. What was kind of the thought process for like having the feral start on it instead of the blood decay?
It was mainly a choice of convenience again. At the end of the day, I could start done a little bit of extra DPS as a cat. But this is just what we started doing on PTR, and we just stuck with it to not change the flow of the pulse.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to delve too much into how we did it originally, but it wasn't something that you necessarily could just swap a tank from one pull to the other and then expect everything to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Took a little bit of getting used to. So once we had it, we just stuck with it. And then we, of course, fixed it at the end here, and then, yeah.
Gotcha.
The rest worked out.
And you were talking earlier about this, but we can see here the like stack strat where you have like everybody just stacked up in melee there except for the catters in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the advantages of this? What did you guys like about this?
It puts a lot of stress on your hunters. Obviously, they are managing the worms themselves. Nobody else is touching them the entire fight, but it allows everyone else to just take the hands off the keyboard. It's never going to be an ad they're going to move from. There's never going to be a pillar of flame that they're going to move from. You can just stand still, pump. But it is one of those things where if your hunters fuck up, then the raid wipes. But I believe we have very good hunters, and they, it didn't take much time, if any at all, to get this down for them. So they were super stable on this. So it was just a natural choice.
Yeah,
Does also require discipline from the raids, so everybody's actually properly stacked. There's nobody moving out.
And just wanted to mention too on the ads, like you're taking them directly on the raid there. A lot of people think that the ads cleave just because it's like a cleave animation and like the icons a cleave and everything. Just wanted to like kind of point out that obviously there's no cleave there. It looks like a cleave, but it's not. So it is safe to just tank the ad right there.
Yeah, it's completely fine.
But yeah, otherwise the only thing for the tanks really is we're swapping after each of the mangle phases because of the debuff it leaves. So don't want to necessarily tank the boss for more than absolutely needed with that.
Yeah, I assume that's just kind of a like a race thing you were doing just for safety.
Swapping tanks?
Yeah.
It's something I would always do. Like, it
really?
leaves a nasty 1 minute debuff on you. I think it reduces, what is it, your armor by 50% or something. So it's just a lot of extra unnecessary damage.
If you bring two tanks anyway, you should always do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not really... Yeah, there you go, 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's the backwards flow. Yeah, in all our pulls, I've always just tanked through it the whole time. Hasn't really been an issue, but yeah, if you've got the other tank, you might as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did the exact same thing as you did for the longest time on PTR, but then it just was those eureka moments like, why are we not doing it? Why are we doing it this way? So it was just a matter of just playing it, making it as safe as possible again. So
yeah, no real value gained if you're starting the fight with the other tank anyway, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And then now this is the hands off the keyboards moment. Just waiting for the next impale.
And for the uninitiated, the reason we do this is so the boss transition at 30%, but if you push him while Magmaw is impaled on the spike, he actually doesn't do any damage. It's one of those things we found out early on PTR and just stuck with it. So that's why it's very important that we don't push it early. Of course, we almost managed to just kill the boss during this impale, and we almost take no damage from the enrage, so to speak, or the soft enrage.
Yeah, definitely a really safe way to do it. We had polls where like we pushed him like into the last phase. We were getting like shadow bolted during like mangle and stuff, and so, some people die. It's not the safest way to do it. It can be done, but for sure this pretty much just seals the win right here.
Yeah, I did the strategy with my poke as well yesterday, so it works with other than world first skills as well. So it's definitely something that'll make your phase 3 a lot more consistent.
And just wanted to call out to when that like massive crash happened right here. Nobody moves for it. Just drop the AMZ, drop the barrier, make sure we reduce the raid damage taken, and everybody's just sitting in the crash.
Oh, that's really safe, actually.
Yeah,
it didn't look like a problem at all.
As long as
even
you have
unmitigated, you're not gonna die. So the problem is when people start moving, depending on the timing, you just saw the meteor coming there. Like sometimes it would come during that movement as well, and then if people aren't being very disciplined with their movement, you could get it spawning on the raid. So we just made the call to stand still, soak it, use your personals, live through it to just keep it simple. And again, it's just one of those things. If you need to stand still the entire fight, how can it get any easier? So.
For sure. And just to really quickly like clarify too, so for the meteors to not spawn on you guys here, everybody just has to be stacked very, very close to Magmaw, right?
Correct. You need to be in melee range of the boss, and then you need 3 people in ranged. So you will see the 2 Hondas and yeah.
We did actually have a death here of the outside people, which is very scary with the strategy.
Yeah. And think you'll see it even? Nah, you didn't hear. But yeah, if you have 3 people, then it'll always go on either of those 3. And if they're being nice and disciplined, then the Hondas and in this case a Resto Druid would just move together, and you would ensure that, yeah, again, you can keep AFKing on your little safe spot.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that strat. It's good.
But again, it does require you to have Hondas who can manage, because otherwise it's going to be a lot of wipes.
For sure, for sure. And then the rare actual Drake skip. It feels like every time we try to skip this, by guild it gets pulled, but you guys did it.
It's really mostly the priest carrying with the Mindsleuth.
Yeah.
The distracts actually don't do much, but the Mindsleuth just carries it entirely.
This one we're getting a little bit unorthodox.
Yeah, you guys actually do the same thing we did, so I felt right at home here. You guys use the Ret Pally, it looked like, to tank the like regular phase break stacks.
We tried quite a lot of things on beta as well, but we ended up sticking with this one. It just simplifies the fight quite a bit.
Yeah, that's how we felt too. Just keep all the break stacks on the Ret Pally and normal phase. That way you have 2 real tanks with 0 break stacks going into the system failure. Seemed really safe. And you switched to Impetuous Query there, I think, the trinket.
Yeah, that 333 item level trinket, yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? What was the thought process there?
So the idea is in the last phase, kind of the old school way, obviously the boss gets big, is enraged, and the way it was done back in the days often was with kiting. But if, like with the tanks today, and with cooldowns like Cleansing Rune Weapon, you can get a very high amount of mitigation, just pure parry. And so we ended up stacking just these mitigation stats and phase tanking it in the last phase, and just kind of praying to RNGesus for the parries, or the dodges.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, with Dancing Rune, you get 20%. You probably have, I don't know, 18 to, well, raid buff, you probably have about 20% plus, like, just baseline, I would think, dodge plus parry.
Yeah.
And then boss miss chance too. So yeah, you would definitely have like over a 50% chance, maybe like, I don't know, a little bit over 50% chance to avoid each attack, and Chimaeron attacks pretty slowly, so. Also
in general, this is a boss where these 1 minute cooldown trinkets are very nice, because really the system failures are the scary parts of the fight. Mm-hmm. And if you have a 1 minute cooldown trinket, you can always pop it there. Yeah, definitely. And so just let me just go back a little bit. So here, just for anybody who might not totally understand what's going on, basically the Ret Pally with Reg's Fury is main tanking the boss outside of system failures. They're taking all the break stacks, which increase your physical damage taken, but also increase your or decrease your healing done. So that you know, just makes you take a lot of damage. But in the non-system failure, you have the cheat death buff. So the Ret Pally just has to be above 10,000 HP, and they'll never die. So you can just drop all those debuff stacks on the Ret Pally that essentially can't die during that time. And then the real tanks will tank during the system failure here. So here you guys have Cab taking the break stacks and melees, and then Visp is just taunting the double attack there during system failure. And exactly. And then Visp also just handling double attack during the regular phase 2.
Yep.
Also, if you're a struggling guild, it's completely fine to even play this boss with 3 tanks. You could have the Red Go Prot instead. Things like that could work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the damage check didn't seem like too big of a deal.
No, so here you'll see our little, well, my little fuck up. We intended for Visp to solo tank this phase, because at this point I obviously have still break stacks from before, so you'll see I died there. But the idea would be that Visp would just solo tank this entire one, also taking the double hits, as she would have less break stat than I would. Yeah. That would allow me to go into the last phase with 0 break stacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw the Icebound go out there. That would, you know, for sure be enough to get through that. And one thing to mention too, for anybody who might not know, is that anytime Chimaeron casts Massacre, he'll fizzle any double attack buff he has on him. So anytime you see double attack on him, but then he starts to cast Massacre, you should just know that that double attack is not going to happen. That buff will just fizzle. There won't be a double attack. And then at 20%, we're going to get the final phase. So here we're just prepping for that. Had the death there. Oh. That was just, I think, break stacks, right? Going.
Yeah, because he just
repeat of my mistake from the prior massacre.
Mm-hmm.
But did they come back from it quite nicely, at least?
Yeah, we just the most important thing is we managed to get the taunt in here to make sure that Visp would be snapped on top of that. So when I would eventually die, I would be okay.
Yeah.
So again, the idea, at least for me here, I would try to use my mobility while making sure I both had the Tolvia trinket with the agility proc, along with Tolbarat trinket, of course, with Tolvia Persian to just kind of try to my best to achieve the same as Visp here, but she just aces it.
I looked at the phase, and I think during this entire phase, 2 of his attacks hit me.
Yeah,
the rest was parried.
Very nice, very nice. And Blood DK can just survive a long time in that phase in general, since healing reduction effects don't affect blood shield. So you can survive for quite a while, just like putting up blood shields too. I like that move too at the end. So we had Cab like run to one side of the room, Visp ran to the other, so that Chimaeron would have travel time just get extra damage as the boss moves during that time.
It also allows you to time your cooldowns better. If it just randomly snaps over, it's a bit more scary.
Yeah, true. All right. Atramedes, is there anything you want to talk about on Atramedes? It's pretty straightforward. I don't think there was any weird tech or anything on trash either.
No.
Maybe your POV
Tank
is more interesting.
specific, there's not really a whole lot. Yeah, I have. I didn't send that, but yeah, this I kite Defiant phase 2 in the air phase. But
okay.
Again, anyone with a little bit of movement speed can do that. I'm basically just full DPS in this one.
Mm-hmm.
No rocket science there. One thing at least we can know that we're doing is we're sending a lot of gongs at the start here because we have the DPS to do so. And then I wouldn't suggest this for any guilds who's doing it this the first time, but after I'm done kiting in the air phase, I use another gong just to ensure that anyone who for some reason had gotten any sound stacks during the air phase is safe once the boss lands. So it just clears everything and you're good to go. But you can only do this, of course, if you have the DPS for it, otherwise you want to save it. But
yeah, absolutely. And I'm
tank-wise,
sure
this is basic.
As groups get more and more geared, like full 372s, I'm sure we're going to see some crazy gong use at the start, just trying to pump the damage.
Yeah, this possibly gives me flashbacks back to the good old Magmaw days.
Oh, yeah.
Do speed kills just back to back to back.
Those were the days.
Happy memories. Yeah.
All right. Pretty simple fight. Would you guys say this is the easiest fight heroic in tier 11? Or would you put Halfus easier?
I think this is easier.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too.
Depending on your raid, like if you're Puck, I'd still put Halfus as easier because there's, from experience now already, there's people seeing this for the first time needs a few pulls to adjust. Whereas Halfus, if you know what the tanks are doing, then you can kind of carry the load along with the healers. But here people can just kill themselves randomly, and then the gongs actually turns out to matter in the end. So.
Yeah, and 10-man last night, I actually ended up with one of those pulls where I was like last man standing, like as Searing Flames is happening, and we have 0 gongs left. It was just one of those like those epic Blood DK finishes.
That feels good.
Yeah. All right, so Maloriak here. I think most people are doing this just trying to go through one cycle because you really don't want to spend an extra like 4 minutes or whatever going through more cycles to get another green phase and do like the old 9 and 9 strat.
For sure.
Yeah, were you guys 3 tanking this or 2 tanking?
No, 2 tanking.
Okay. And yeah, just Gab, you're just solo handling the ads then, the aberrations.
Yeah, unfortunately, this was again one of our most unclean Maloriak kills we've had on the PTR as well. Basically, the hunters carry this phase. You'll see in the back we have 2 hunters both throwing slow traps and snake traps, or freezing traps and snake traps with entrapment. So I'm able to kite the ads really well in the back, being generally really safe. It makes it a lot easier. There's different ways to approach these foils as well, but for the sake of safety, we decided to go with this one. We just kite them slowly around the room.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we ended up on.
Yeah. And Visp is just gradually rolling her CDs on the front row.
Yeah. Important here for tanks, these black swirlies on the floor, they can be kind of hard to see, and from what I've seen, add-ons can be kind of hard to properly alert you from them. Like I know my GTFO sometimes didn't properly go off. But in general, you just really want to play this safe. You don't want to double stack these areas plus the engulfing darkness.
Yeah. It can especially get dangerous also if you have the aberrations clipping the boss at the start, empowering his attacks. So.
Yeah.
We just played it safe again.
And again, this is a occurrence where AMS is just super strong.
Yeah, it's so insane. You just pop it, it gets rid of your healing debuff, obviously makes you take less damage from the magic as well. And you can just like end the breath at full health because you can, you know, become healable partway through it with AMS.
Yep.
And then just stacking for the fire breath. Can probably skip ahead here.
We got a little bit unlucky on this pull, seeing as we didn't get any aberration spawns before the first swirls. If you get that, this part becomes a lot easier. So just we used Visp as the only interrupt on the boss. If you want to keep your trigger happy melees from potentially making a mistake, causing a tank death later on, just have them hold off on interrupting at all and just leave it to the tanks. We know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Bloody K can handle every single Arcane Storm, no problem. So just leave it to the Bloody K.
They're unfortunate to get clipped, but we're going into the green phase, so I get back up, pop all the CDs, do an AoE taunt. Threat's not an issue anymore at that point. We managed to recover. The only thing worth noting, at least from a druid POV, earlier I mentioned I was in full agility gear. Here I specifically swapped my gear set around, so I would be a lot more tanky, seeing as my ideally I don't want to be taking damage from the ads at all, so just increasing your chance of survival should go sideways then.
And you've got some aberrations and also the primes on you back there now, just kiting around. And I really like this movement too. So I was like tanking it over in the corner and like basically just going back and forth in like the corner over there. But I really like this. Like boss doesn't even move. Like movement was pretty limited over there, but this is pretty great. Just kind of the circular sidestep back and forth.
In general, if you play it here with super small movements, you enable the raid to just completely stand still and not worry about this at all.
Yeah, like over here, this is where I was playing it, but definitely prefer your method. Just boss stance completely still, just a little bit of circular sidestepping, and you don't even have to move very much either. Just to stay out of the magma jets. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna switch over to Cab's POV for Nef. So this one, I think this will help a lot of people out. Most wipes on this fight are probably gonna be due to the ads. Something going wrong with the ads. So I think this will be really beneficial for people to see a POV of this. At the beginning here, you're just dragging Ani over. Cab's picking up ads.
Yeah, that was a generally
an army.
Yeah, armies are always fun, and
yeah,
they're not always your friend, especially Earth Elementals, especially Demon at this point. What you'll see going a little bit sideways in this phase is our Blood Tank right here. He is hard striking, so he managed to get aggro on 2 ads while I'm picking up the other ones, which means you saw Onyxia there breathe the ads, and now these ads have full energy again.
Yeah.
So that forces me to stay out of this fight a lot longer than I would originally like to. But we moved them off to the side here. I try my best to make them nice and stacked. That'll be relevant in phase 3 when we get the Shadow Flame Sparks. But generally just circling around, backstabbing a little bit sometimes will force them to not try to group around you, allowing you to keep them in a nice and tight stack here. But you'll see these two just last forever, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but we manage. So just remind your DK to not hard strike.
Is there any reason you don't take them like a little bit further out, like onto the track over here, and kill them instead?
Not particularly. It's mainly a matter of range for the healers. Like this position we have there is far enough away in phase 3 that nobody's forced to move. But going further out would force my healers in this phase to change position and potentially be out of range of other targets as well.
Got it.
You could definitely take them further out, but it was just a call of us not needing to. So we didn't.
For sure. And you got your 2 crackles, so killing Ani now to push the phase. I believe here you guys put pretty much all the DPS on 2 platforms, and you leave 1 with just an interrupter.
The last platform is the 2 Blood Decay tanks by themselves.
Okay.
Again, DKs being DKs.
Mm-hmm. So double Blood Decays on 1 platform. And then in the final phase, Ranger just going to kill that ad and interrupt it.
Correct. We have a handful in specifically for this fight to ensure that he can keep that one interrupted while the rest of us are pumping.
We'll just skip ahead a little bit here. Oh, I did like, I was watching Holy Palace Sui's POV of this too. I think at one point, like, he cinders, jumped into the lava, then got insta life grip back out. I love that. Just,
yeah.
Great life grip use.
It's amazing when you see priests who have the foresight and to just make those plays. It feels nice.
I do think our priests have been gaming with that.
Yeah, for sure. We have good priests, so I'm really happy.
Yeah, I've been saved a few times with it. Like, a priest I can recognize when you're in a bad situation.
Time for my rant here. So
yes,
when these mobs spawn, if you go back like a few seconds, you'll see they don't actually, you can't touch them for the first couple of seconds. Yeah, it did a rend there, it will drop off. So they're super annoying to pick up. You need to wait a couple of seconds before you can actually do anything to them. Anything past that point is not going to matter. These mobs will maintain threat from phase 1 after they die, because they're not technically dead, so your healers will have threat on them, and any DKs, if for whatever reason had dots on them when they died, will also have threat on them. So just remind your Holy Paladins to not play with Righteous Fury, otherwise that becomes a little bit messy.
Yeah, on the DK point too, we had DKs that literally did not touch the ads like the entire phase, and like they were like getting threat on them. So I don't even know, like, but it was like specifically DKs. So I'm not sure what exactly is causing that.
It's just a passive threat from the dots. Like, they may say they weren't touching them, but they were probably doing a pestilence.
They still were. Yeah, I was taking their word for it. Yeah, so then just every time they die, just same deal. The right reset, but while they're dead, they are accumulating threat on.
Yes.
During that time, that they'll carry over. Okay. Yeah, this actually isn't a role I've done yet, so this is super interesting to see.
You'll see third tank who was tanking Onyxia in the first phase. He's helping me out here, just making sure I pick up all the ads. I try specifically not to rend them unnecessarily if I don't need to, because okay, maybe I'd take a step back. We see the movement on the sparks. We're gonna get a spark like now, so we want to make sure we drag those ads away. If they get hit, it's like the boss breathing on them and resetting their energy. We of course want to avoid that. If it does happen though, you need somebody to assist you, because otherwise you're going to die. Often this will be a hunter with entrapment. It will be a mage. So I try to, as much as possible, to avoid bleeding these ads in case I need to do a Ring of Frost.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's just a very tight, continuous movement of, you see the spark, And you can pre-move a little bit. Just you see coming up now, I pre-move, we get the spark, it's safe. So it's just the pre-movement that's the important part to ensure you don't fuck up the sparks here. And then also having a tank who's paying attention to you, actually turning the boss alongside, because if your other tank is being a little bit absent-minded and you just keep running, suddenly you end up in front of the tank, and not only do you reset the threat on the ads, but also you get breath.
Well, this is going on, and he has the fun in there. I'm in the middle of the boss, and the ad tank should really be allowed to move however he needs to, and the other tank needs to pay attention and keep turning the boss in a circle.
Yeah.
With this threat.
At this point, it's basically just my fight in the sense that nothing else is really going on for the raid. They're just DPSing, they're doing their assigned CDs on the MRT, and for us at least, Discord was just left for me to make calls if I needed any help. So this was super sweet. There's again Goblin. You use Rocket Jump just to get a little bit of extra edge. You can also use, mainly why I went Warrior here, you have the Heroic Leave as well you can use. What you don't want to do is use slows on them. I tried doing it as a druid first. I had infected wounds, they were slowed, and when I did the movement, they would simply just be too slow to actually get out of the spark that was spawning. So you want to make sure you don't have any movement speed slows on these, otherwise they will clip. And sometimes these will also just randomly stop up. You'll see it a couple of times here where some of them are just lacking behind there. So that is why at least you want to pre-move, because even you see there they started doing it. If you pre-move, you allow them to do their little janky movement and still not get hit by the spark. But this was for us super clean. I think this is still the cleanest Nef we've had. I was really happy with this. It turned out well. But it was also a very clean or quick Nef kill compared to others. So again, the longer this phase is gonna last, the more the more chances you have of fucking this up. Where it gets really scary is if the mobs get split, where you have some dying but some not dying. Maybe half got hit by a spark, but the other half didn't. This is where especially you want to use your second tank to help you out, because at that point you're gonna have a lot of ads just hitting you very, very hard. So having a second tank there who can take over or just alleviate the damage is gonna be a good approach for it. And also here mainly we keep the second tank second on threat. So should I die for any reason, he can just tank them and run him far, far away.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, and I know the timer there says Dominion, but it looks like the Shadow Spark comes out on your Dominion timer every single time.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. That looks like it's, you know, pretty mandatory for this. It just gives you such an easy indication of like when you need to move.
So you see, I actually had both DBM and Murphin's WeakAuras here. It was basically just to have a redundancy. I really didn't want to miss the Shadow Flame Sparks because of a WeakAura issue or whatever. But so I just track. I use Murphin's on the right. You see the timer coming in, and that's precise. That's when he cast it. So on 0, you need to be moving. He will never delay the Shadow Flame Spark. So that's just something you can use. But really, just having a precise Shadow Flame timer is very important here. And paying attention to it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Very, very impressive job. Like I said, I haven't done this before myself, so it's really good to see this. I think this will cut down on the amount of pulls it takes me on my Prot Warrior, Prot Ally, whatever I end up doing this on. As far as like Prot Ally versus Prot Warrior for this, you feel like just the Shockwave is kind of the big difference maker there, or you think Prop Ally is totally fine for this too?
Prop Ally is totally fine for this. The main reason I chose to use the warrior is for the heroic leap.
Oh, true. Yeah.
As mentioned, and if you also go back and I mentioned at the start that Shadow Flame starts slow. First one's going to be after almost immediately, then there's going to be 30 seconds till one, and at the end you're almost getting once every 5 seconds. So you can't really afford to actually use the stuns of any of the tanks. Very, very rare.
Right.
So at that point it's just going to be the mobility that helps you out. Obviously, paladins have like passive movement speed, sure. That's not always, or I at least didn't find it to be more important on this fight than a leap. And again, Goblin is the goat here. Again, also having a little rocket jump.
Yeah, with Warrior you got Goblin and Leap, so yeah, that's pretty huge compared to the Pally.
Yeah, but this just went so nice that I didn't actually need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
The mobility is mainly comes into play if you need to start kiting a lot, and that will probably happen in the Menigil's progression. But if the ads get hit, it's not a wipe, not at all. You just need to alter your strategy, and you just need to accept that they're gonna live, and you're just gonna need help from your mages and your hunters to simply just root these for an extended period of time. Just need to keep in mind that all these ads do a baseline damage, and their damage will only ever increase when they hit you. So it doesn't matter how much energy they have, it doesn't matter how long they stay alive if they don't hit you. So if you can keep them CC'd with roots and whatnot, then you can still keep the fight going for a long time. I'm not going to say you're going to kill it if you fuck up right away, but you can, if you kill it once, like you can easily recover that with a bunch of good roots.
Yeah, that's a huge tip, because in our guild, when like things went wrong, we would just send armies on all the DKs, but the roots, yeah, the Ring of Frost, the traps, yeah, that definitely seems better. And then like once things like start going crazy after you've like tried all the like kiting and roots and stuff, then throw the armies and could extend it even more, I guess.
Yeah, it should be a last case effort, because as mentioned before, every time they hit, they get the stack. So using army, it's going to be a temporary fix, but it's going to leave you in a worse state afterwards, because armies obviously have fuck all dodge and parry, so they're just going to acquire a lot of stacks through them. You can use a Bob AoE as well to delay it further if you need to just wait for another route. Again, mages are the goats on this with short CD on Frost Nova, so if you can do a Frost Nova into an AoE taunt, then the Frost Nova is basically going to be ready again, and you're good to go for another round. So,
Army is also interesting.
Sorry?
If you're as the main tank, you should not use army as a defensive on this fight, since there can be a chance, like if anything happens, be it like a tank dies and that's come a bit closer to the boss or anything, if your army starts grabbing the ads from outside, that's really bad.
Yeah.
So in general, I would recommend the main tanks on the boss should not use army as a defensive.
Yeah, definitely. I was just saving mine for the end, like if our ad tank died and we were in that, like, you know, boss is like 10-15% or lower, and we're, you know, trying to get the kill, army last ditch effort to like keep it below that thing. But
for sure, that's still a good approach, but it should be one of those oh shit moments. I wouldn't want to plan that into our kill. That seems scary.
Definitely. Yeah, I really like the idea of like the roots and just controlling them, though, because we were very much like, as soon as like something went really wrong, like ad tank dies or whatever, it was just send all the armies. And your approach, I love that so much. Just like really control them with the mage, the hunters. If that starts to break down, then you can throw the armies. But it's just really important that people go into this like with an idea of like what they will do if the ad tank dies at the end, because there will be lots of times like while you're progging this, the ad tank dies. And if you go in with a plan, you know exactly what you're going to do when that happens, then you can very easily turn a wipe into a kill, just executing that plan.
For sure. At least one more thing I want to mention is the electrocute. Of course, it's not really a big deal for the raid. They'll live it. But if you're tanking all these ads and they have a bunch of stacks and you're getting the electrocute, then you're gonna want to have a CD for it. Otherwise, you just risk up just getting almost one shot. So of course, the Tall Brow trinket is amazing for this to mitigate the electrocute damage. But I got 2 PSs on this. I got Hand of Sacks. I got my double shield wall through and last stand in this phase. And basically any kind of external CD should be yours. The raid don't need it. So if your healers claim otherwise, they're lying.
Yeah, absolutely. This really is just the off tanks fight. Like, I'm not sure if I can think of a fight in that we've had so far in Classic where the off tank was more important than on this fight. They're just kind of the single most important person, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Maloriak is a similar one where the main tank kind of does a lot less than the off tank, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Anything else for this fight? That was really good. I think all that information is going to help people a ton, and just
I'm going to leave just any
thousands of
last note is just to reiterate the point of don't use any slows. If you use slows, they will almost always clip on Shadow Flame Spark, and you're going to have a very bad time. So if you have a druid or anything doing this, just make sure that they don't have infected wounds, don't have any kind of external slows on them. Just yeah.
All right. And I closed it. I wanted to show, so you guys you did like a BWL run after your world first. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think I left that in.
Go kill Nef.
Well, actually, like the idea was we wanted to take a nice screenshot together, but layering happened outside, so we decided to go inside instead.
We wanted to include the people who helped us, like all the summoners, clickers who were not part of the raid, but who still participated both like now, but also on PTR. We wanted to just show it was a guild effort, but of course you come to the point of, okay, shit, now we realize that 80% of the raid isn't attuned for Blackwing Lair. Now we're gonna do UPS. So that was a thing that happened.
I love that.
We just extended our little raid night by 40 minutes.
Yeah, I gotta say there were so many people helping out, like behind the scenes as well. The people summoning, the people just sitting on the bench in case anything were to happen, right? In fact, I even got someone to send me a meta gem via mail because that's the only thing I forgot in my bags. There's so much going on behind the scenes.
That's funny you say that because like I prepped like all my enchants, gems, everything like beforehand, and that was the one thing I forgot to. Like
exactly
just the meta gems. So somehow that was the one thing I forgot. I had like so many different gems and enchants, and I was missing that one. And let's see. Yeah. I mean, let's just skip to the end here. Get the second Nef kill. Yeah, there he is. 2 Nefs in one day.
Wow.
What any big loot off Nef here? Let's see.
Ashkanti. People are hungry for the Ashkanti.
Ashkanti.
Yeah. My little warrior has that one too.
There it is, the Ashkanti. Very nice.
I think there was a lot of sad faces when it didn't drop from the other Nefarian.
Yeah.
God knows there's gonna be Opera when we need to, or when the Loot Council needs to figure out what to do with those. There's quite a few interested parties.
All right, guys. So that's all I had for you. Did you want to like plug anything, give any shout outs, or is there anything else you wanted to say before we go?
No plugs, but shout out to Jay who was whistling. It was It kept us sane throughout the run. That's great.
Made me insane. What
Appreciate
I mean. But yeah, shout out to like everyone who helped achieve this. It was amazing. And yeah,
Sure.
like I do stream on Twitch on Visp. But that being said, I'm not a streamer. I just stream important runs every once in a while. But I won't interact with you. Sorry.
Fair enough. I'll if it's all right, I'll just throw the VOD and your POV in like the description.
Sure thing.
So people can check those out and hopefully help them in their runs, getting these bosses down a little bit quicker. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And again, huge grats on the world first. I know so much time preparation goes into this, and it's got to feel amazing when you actually get it done. All that hard work pays off.
Yeah, for sure. 4 back-to-back. Now I just need to finally get that speedrun as well.
That's the next goal. And then Firelands, we'll be looking forward to seeing what progress does there.
Absolutely.
Definitely, the guild is excited for that. We're gonna see some good tech in there, I'm sure. So look forward to it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on, and I hope to talk to you guys again after Firelands when you get your next world first.
I hope so. Thank you for having us, and good luck on everyone's progressions.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And same.